Hey everybody, it's Helen Hillix, intuitive counselor, and I am going live today because the universe opened up a space for me to do it. I was supposed to be doing a podcast interview right now, but my guest had an emergency, and so here I am. I get to be with you guys instead. So as I said, I'm an intuitive counselor. I have 35 years of experience as a licensed therapist and intuitive counselor. I've worked with hundreds and probably thousands of people by now. And I've got lots of tools and experience, strength and hope to offer you. And I want to give it. That was my meditation this morning when I asked the universe, what am I supposed to be focusing on? And what I got was giving. So that's what I'm doing. And that's why I'm hopping on live, so I can give you what I've got. So let me get started. The topic that came to me today, hey, Cassie, the topic that came to me today is, how do you know when to leave and when to stay? And when I first started thinking of it, I was thinking of romantic relationships. But after I wrote down some notes about the steps that we need or we get to go through in order to make a decision like that, I also realized it has to do with anything. It can do with leaving a home that you've had for years. It can be leaving a job or leaving a career. It doesn't have to just be a particular job. It might be changing careers altogether. So I want you to realize that what I'm saying applies to all these different significant ways of being in our lives. And maybe it even applies to that too. Before you leave a way of being, you get to really go through these steps. So let's start out with the steps. And there are quite a few of them. And don't be discouraged, because the reality is, let's pretend like it's a marriage situation, because I think that it has a lot of emotional intensity to it. If you're in a marriage situation and you don't know whether to leave, or let's not say you're married, you're just in a romantic connection and you're really invested in it, how do you know when to leave? Well, you're not going to take that lightly, are you? You're not going to just say, I'm pissed at him today, I'm out of here. Some people do that, but they are not the people I'm talking to, because those are people who just let their impulses run their lives. And I don't think that most of my viewers are those people. All of us have those impulses. I definitely have had those impulses before, but we don't listen to them. When we're making a really important decision, we get to move beyond our impulsivity. And I didn't even write that in these steps, but let's start out with that we have to follow the principle that when we're making life decisions, we don't do it from impulses, period. So the first thing, of course, always in every tool that I offer, is to notice that something's wrong. Notice that you're not feeling good about whatever it is. Again, in this case, it's a relationship. Notice that you're feeling pain about it. You're feeling distress about it. And after you notice that, the very next thing you get to do is to connect to yourself. And why is that so important to be the very next thing you do? Well, you probably already know this, but I'm going to say it anyway, is because unless you are connected to yourself and connected to the universe, and you're in a calm and neutral space of observation, again, you're going to fall back into that place of impulsivity. And you also might not be able to even think clearly if you're not connected to yourself, where you won't be able to think clearly. That there's not any maybe about it. Hey, Journey, welcome. We're talking about when to know when to leave and when to stay. Hi, Delana, welcome. And we're talking about romantic relationships, but it could be anything. Career, I know Journey Jill, for instance, has changed careers, and I'm sure you went through some sort of a similar process as I'm describing. And first we have to notice that something is not right, whether it's in a career or a marriage or a love relationship or a home or whatever it is. We get to notice what's up. We get to notice whether something's wrong, and then we get to connect to ourselves, because unless we feel connected to the oneness, to the divine energies, to higher power, and connected to ourselves and feel self-love, we're not going to be able to take any further steps. I want you to really let that in. Unless you're connected to yourself and you're neutral and trusting the universe and the process of evolution, you're not going to be able to take any further steps in a very conscious way. So thank you for the hearts. I love the hearts. They open my heart and make me feel like everything I'm doing is worth it. So after you connect to yourself and you really, hey, Beverly, welcome. After you connect to yourself, then we get to realize that is when we have an open heart and an open mind to take the further steps. And we want to take life seriously, not in a way of, oh my God, everything's so hard, but in a way, Delana says she goes to Depression Super Bowl. Well, you know what that is, Delana? Depression Super Bowl is that you're turning all your feelings against yourself. That's one theory that I really ascribe to. It's not my theory. Somebody else came up with it a long time ago, but I really believe that when we turn everything against ourselves and we go into inactivity, then we are screwed. We are totally screwed. We're just, because we don't have the energy then to energize ourselves into action and to even be able to think clearly. That's what my Instagram post and Facebook post was about today, was, when in stress, we regress. I think that was the one. But anyway, yeah, because when we're stressed, we're stupid. We can't think. So we get to connect to ourselves and feel neutral. The next thing is take your time. Take your time. And these are steps I want you to know I have used myself, absolutely have used myself, in especially, well, I shouldn't say especially, in relationships, absolutely. I remember when my husband and I were in we've been in a bad place many times in the 12 years we've been together. We have had the shit flying, I swear to God. We've separated twice, but we kept taking our time and getting support and using consciousness. And we are in an amazing place today. I read years ago about couples that stayed long-term, even though they had had years at a time when they felt awful about their marriage, that the preponderance of the couples were so glad that they stayed together and stuck it out. And I never could figure that out. I could never relate to that. I thought, fuck that shit. I'm out of here. This is miserable. But that was me, partly me being impulsive, and it was partly me getting the support to know I was not going to live that way. Absolutely not going to live that way. So for me, it did not work, that thing of let's stay together through thick and thin. I can't abide. As long as you're doing it in a conscious way. So let me not skip over the steps here, but let me go back to take your time. Ask yourself every single day, how do I feel about this person today? How do I feel about this job today? And you ask every day, you evaluate and reflect about how you feel about this situation. How do I feel about where I'm living today? How do I feel about who I'm living with, whether it's a roommate or whatever? Ask every single day, sometimes several times a day. And if you get the same answer every day, week after week, month after month, then that is definitely a signal. But so much of the time, it's like, I feel this way today, and I feel this way tomorrow, and then I feel this way again today, and then I feel this way again tomorrow. And it's like so confusing, and then you get to notice, are there cycles here? Do I want to leave him every month on my period? Thank you again for the hearts. Do I want to leave every month on my period? Do I want to leave every time he drinks? Do I want to leave every time I drink? Do I want to leave every time we don't have sex for a week? Do I want, on and on. Do I want to leave every time there is financial stress? We get to really look at the cycles and take our time to be conscious, to use our awareness. We're not taught that, are we? We're just not taught to be conscious about our decisions. We're taught to either just make a pro and con list and then take action, or we're taught to just sweep it under the rug because, after all, we're married and we have 3 kids. What are we going to do? We don't want to break up our household, so let's not even talk about it. Let's just sweep it under the rug and go on. So we're not taught to be conscious, to take our time, to evaluate things, to really look at things. So next on the list is be sober. And I'm not trying to get people to stop drinking if you drink responsibly. I know for myself, I stopped drinking 30 something years ago. I don't even count anymore. It was 1987. I guess that was 32 years ago. Because I didn't like the way I behaved when I was drunk or drinking. I did stupid things. Did I ever get in trouble? Did I ever lose a job? No, I never got stopped. I never drove, not that I didn't drive drunk. That is absolutely not true. But drinking, people around me never, they would ask me, why did you stop drinking? You never had a problem with drinking. Well, I did have a problem with drinking because it made me do stupid things, and I didn't want to do stupid things anymore. So what I tell my clients is, you get to stop drinking while you're trying to make this decision, or smoking pot, or whatever you're doing, or nothing. But if you're not sober, you get to get sober for this period. If you're trying to make a decision about your job or your relationship, or even where you're moving, you get to be sober to make that decision. And you might tell yourself, oh, well, I only drink a couple of drinks a day, but trust me, it changes your perspective. It really changes your perspective. I have a client just recently who, she was drinking when we started working, and within a couple of weeks, I said, you get to stop drinking. She was trying to figure out whether she should leave this job after 5 years. And I said, you get to stop drinking. You get to start getting up early and exercising every morning. You get to start feeling good about yourself. So be sober when you're going through this process of evaluating big changes in your life, whether you stick with that or not. Thank you again for the likes. Okay, the next thing is get support. And of course, you're going to get support from your friends and family. But guess what, guys? Guess what they know? They know just exactly what you know, unless you have an extraordinary friend who is is really higher consciousness. Then that's really, really cool for you. But most people get support from other people who know exactly as much as they know. And not only that, they're not neutral. They're not neutral. Love all the faces and hearts. They're not neutral. They usually, the people that you're going to pick for support are on your side. And you can go to that person and say, he's such a dick. He does this and this and this and this. And then you get them all to, you gather the troops on your side. And then you might make a decision based on that. But guess what? After you make it, you're not going to feel good about that. I've had this happen in my own life where I did that, where I gathered the troops and badmouthed my husband and so forth. And then later I changed my mind and wanted to be back with him. And guess what? Everybody around me thought he was a dick. And that was my doing, totally my doing. So I want to encourage you guys to get support, but get support from somebody who is really neutral and who has higher consciousness than you have. And of course, I'm one of those people that you can come to, but I'm not, hey, Ryan, I'm not just tooting my own horn. It's like when you're making a big decision about your life, whether it's romantic or career-wise or whatever, you get to get support from people that have higher consciousness and who are neutral, who are not, I know Ryan right now is looking at making a huge career choice. And I know he gets to get support. He gets to get support from people that are neutral and not people that don't want him to do it because it's going to be a big change, or do want him to do it because it's going to be a big money or whatever, but people that are really neutral that can help you evaluate whether this relationship nurtures your soul, whether that job is going to be really supporting your own evolution. And again, don't just rely on people that love you, that know what you know, and that have the same level of consciousness you have. We get to go for the support of people who have higher consciousness, who can really challenge us to go deep and look at things underneath. Another thing you get to do is meditate on it, or pray on it, however you think of it. is keep turning over the decision to your higher power. And if you don't have a higher power, then meditate on a tree and turn it over to that tree. I'm not kidding. We get to keep turning it over to something. You know, nature can be a higher power, but keep turning it over and asking for guidance. Turn it over and ask. Listen, listen, listen. Not just from the higher consciousness of people around us, but listen to the higher consciousness from the universe around us, and you will hear answers if you practice that. Even if you're not in the practice of doing a daily meditation, again, I would say, like getting sober while you make this decision, I would say meditate. If you're not going to continue it afterwards, fine, but I'm sure you probably will, because you're going to love it once you start it. But while you're going through this kinds of transitional questions in our lives, we get to meditate and pray and develop some stronger relationship with higher consciousness. And then the next thing I would say is try different options. And one of those is this, is look at your own reactivity. If you're in a job you don't love and you are thinking that the boss is just a complete asshole and you've got to get out, or your husband or your girlfriend or whatever is a bitch or whatever, then you get to look at yourself and say, I wonder how I'm contributing to this situation. Because it's so easy, and this happens. I know you guys could tell me 100 examples of this in your own life, and I would love to hear some of them, actually. I would love you to, if you have something like this that you are questioning right now, please put it in the comments and let me support you on it right now. If there is some sort of conflict that you're in and you need support, let's talk about it right now. But it has to be a question that, that I can answer, from your comment. So we get to try different options. And the first one is to hold ourselves accountable for our own reactivity. If you're thinking of leaving, is it because you don't like facing the things that that person is saying? Let's say you do drink and your partner is saying, I can't live this way. I just can't live this way. You've got to do something. You've got to do something. You've got to do something. And you want to say, fuck you, I'm out of here. I want to drink. Before you leave, you get to look at whether or not you have a problem drinking, or whether your partner is just trying to control you. And because of her own childhood with an alcoholic father, she's totally projecting that onto you. And you're not an alcoholic at all. You don't even have a problem drinking, but she can't stand the smell of beer. Whatever it is, you get to look at yourself first. If you're in a situation at work where you have a lot of conflict with your coworkers or your boss or whatever, you get to look at yourself and your own attitude. Am I being 100% accountable at work, or do I retaliate by not working as hard as I could because I don't like my boss? Am I passive aggressive and I show up 5 minutes late after lunch, or 5 minutes late getting to work? And you think, oh, that's not a big deal. What's the big deal? Why is he bothering about that? But it's you not holding yourself accountable to be at your highest level possible in this relationship, whether it's a love relationship or it's a work relationship. Have you tried to make your home beautiful the way it is? If you're thinking of leaving, I don't like this paint color, or whatever. I mean, these are trite examples, but it's like, is there something about the situation that's challenging you to put in some different effort, and you're not doing it and you want to just run away from it? So that's the first option you get to try. And you get to try other options. It's like with a relationship I was sharing earlier that I think Richard and I separated 2 times, one for an entire year. And you get to open your mind to trying different options, especially in relationships. It's hard to try different options in a job because it's one job and you have expectations there. But you might be able to say to your boss, I really need a 4-day work week. I'm burning out really quickly. Could we manage me doing a 4-day work week and see if I can still do the same amount of work? That would be trying different options before you just chuck it and say, I got to go. And fight for it if you feel like it's worth fighting for. And in our marriage, it's like we needed to get apart. both of us needed to take a look at our own parts, and we needed to see whether there was something valuable in our connection or whether we were better off apart. And we get to explore different options like that that seem really radical. And they are, I guess, they are radical. And yet this is, you got one life, guys, as far as we know. We may have many lifetimes, but I don't care. This is the one we've got right now. And it doesn't matter what's happening in the future or happened in the past. This is it. And you get to have the best life you possibly can. And you get to be creative about it. You know, maybe you stay in separate bedrooms, you know, and see how that goes, and just act like roommates and give each other the freedom to be. But try different options. Give yourself creative thinking as one option for how to handle these dilemmas, these conflicts. Make lists is the next thing I put down, is make lists. And I'm glad I put that down because I would have forgotten that. We get to integrate the spiritual, emotional, and physical and mental. You know, people are all too, you know, one of the steps I have here is to learn how to check in with higher consciousness, with the divine energies, ask for guidance, you know, and I totally believe in that wholeheartedly. And yet God gave us a brain, you know, for a reason, so that we could also use our own brain and to take accountability for the issues ourselves, to use our ability to evaluate, you know, use that ability to evaluate. Hey, welcome, checks are 4. I don't want to get sidetracked here. I want to stay focused. We need to use our mental ability and to be able to use our evaluative abilities and make lists of the pros and cons. And you might have forgotten a huge pro about your job. You know, I feel bad sometimes. I use my husband so often, but he's the closest person to me, and he's given me permission to do this. He's working at a job part-time that's not his favorite job, but it's literally 5 minutes from our home, and he doesn't like to drive. And it pays not very well compared to his skill level. That is absolutely for sure. And it challenges him to change his reactivity. That's a good thing, but it's not something we like in a job or any other place. And there are so many benefits. It's got the summer off, and it's just, there's one benefit after the other. But until we get down to making lists of why he should stay there for now until he finds something better, he forgets all those positive aspects of it. And I know that happens to all of us. I know it's happened to me. So, you know, we get to make lists and include our own mental ability to evaluate things in this process of deciding whether to leave a situation or not, whether it's a marriage or a career or a home. And I mentioned this before, but it's worth another mention, which is change your own reactions. Own your own reactions. I'm just letting that sink in for a minute, because I don't care. Let's say you're married to an alcoholic who is just a mess, missing work, blah, blah, blah. You get to still look at your own reactivity. Are you trying to control him or her? Are you trying to excuse them and call in sick for them? Are you trying to manage it by throwing away all the alcohol that you find in all the hidden places? And on and on and on. You know, before you make a decision about a really important thing like whether to leave a marriage, you get to own your own reactivity and shift it. Now, it may well be after you quit trying to manage the alcoholic that you actually, you know, believe, absolutely, I've got to go. But it also may be that, you know what, after I stopped trying to manage his life, I realized I can have a happy life and let him have his own process, and I don't need to go. So it's so important to look at yourself and change your own reactivity during the process. So that's really it. I mean, I know that it's a complicated, it seems kind of complicated, but it really is just being thorough That is really what I'm suggesting, is just being thorough about big choices like whether to leave and whether to stay in a marriage. You get to be thorough. You get to take your time. You get to get support from higher consciousness and from people who have higher consciousness. You get to evaluate your own reactions. You get to try different options and be creative. And if you do those things and you get to evaluate every day, ask yourself, do I want to leave today? How about today? Do I still want to leave today? All these things, if you're willing to put in the effort, you will come to a conclusion that really makes your heart feel peaceful. And that is the important thing, is that whatever you decide, whether you decide to stay or whether you decide to go, whether it's a job, a home, a career, whatever, you get to feel peaceful about it. And that is the most important thing. There is no right or wrong from my perspective. I don't believe that once you've been married or take a job that you're committed and you have to be loyal. I don't buy that. It has to be for the highest good of all. And if you use this process that I've laid out today, that a process of thoroughness and consciousness, you're going to feel so much better. So that's it for today, guys. I love you. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to grab my free gift. If you're on Instagram, the link is in the bio. If you're on Facebook, the link is in the comments. Listen to my latest podcast episode about what it's like to be a porn star and escort, and how that can be turned around with sobriety and support into being, something that you can help others escape from. All kinds of exciting things happening, guys, and stay tuned. I love you all, and I'll talk to you soon. And thank you so much for the hearts and the support today.